Hi all, I hope you had a nice weekend, enjoyable, productive. I hope the week is off to a good start. I hope you're enjoying the cooler weather. I very much enjoyed our time together on Wednesday, and this is intended to be a brief recap of one or two of the more important pieces from Friday's class that we'll be carrying forward, and a look ahead to our class on Friday. So first, we addressed an important part of the evolution of our lessons and what we're exploring as we move from challenges to obstacles, something we spent a good time addressing and something that has relevance in a variety of ways, to another O. So challenges to obstacles and the O is objects, that these obstacles that we've been noticing and observing, the thoughts, feelings, and sensations that are emerging as we're resisting and or that contribute to further resistance, we can have those become the object of our attention. And so this week, when you're doing whichever practice that you're doing as your primary practice that you'll be continuing to practice and ultimately writing about in your paper to help teach it and explain it and why it can be helpful to the reader, when you notice that your mind has wandered, or you notice that there's a feeling that sort of has come along that's taken hold, or sensations in the body that you are can't sort of get your mind off of, that these become momentarily the object of your attention. That you actually say, rather than get back to the breath or get back to that more open state or get back to that part of the body, while you'll do that in just a few moments, actually pause and, like that magnifying glass, we talked about our internal and external Sherlock Holmes, the magnifying glass that Carolina brought to class, the magnifying glass that Sam cut out and brought to class. We have that internal magnifying glass, and in many ways, when you realize that there's a thought, feeling, or sensation that is sort of capturing your attention, or had been, before you pivot to wherever that practice instruction would take you, you pause for a few moments and just observe that obstacle, as we've previously been referring to them, as the object of your attention. All right, so that's an important consideration to bear in mind for your practice this week, and something that we'll talk about in class. All right, so you have the chapter 13 on practice. Before you read that chapter, do the word search that was handed out in class. You'll bring that to class on Friday. You need not email that. You'll just bring your word search to class on Friday, having filled out the information, because it is a mindfulness practice. Then you'll read the chapter on practice, and then there's the chapter on creativity. Now, with regard to the chapter on creativity, you will be in constructing 3 haiku, and you'll be emailing those on Wednesday, along with your written assignment. So a little bit about those 3 haiku. One day you will go outdoors with your crayons and your piece of paper. Either bring a piece of paper or use one from the field guide. You will draw something out in nature. Now, before you do this, watch the short video on haiku so that you have a refresher on what a haiku is, and also understand that in many ways haiku draw upon the natural world and are inspired by it. So that's why you're going outdoors, and you're going to, this time, after you do a short practice, you'll then draw something that you see outdoors that really is sort of the inspiration for what you'll then do right afterward, which is craft the haiku. And that'll be like the project around the haiku. And as you'll read in the book on practice, it's a sandwich practice as well. So we'll talk about sandwich practices in class. But this is a sandwich practice. You've got these 3 parts to what you're doing. You're going to sit for a few minutes and do an open monitoring practice. You're then going to draw your image, and then you're going to write your haiku. All right. On 2 other occasions, however you choose to do this, I'm suggesting that you do this after you finish a mindfulness practice, but whenever you want to do it, you will also create 2 other haiku. You'll have a total of 3 haiku, and you will be emailing, turning those in by Wednesday. Please also turn in, when you do, like make a copy however you want to, the drawing that you made with one of your haiku alongside it. Bring that to class as well. Okay, in addition to that, you will be doing a word search. Now, the word search, which I mentioned before that you'll do before you read the chapter on practice, has you sit whenever you want to and just do this word search, but you'll be setting a timer for 12 minutes and seeing what you can do in 12 minutes. And then when we meet in class, we will talk about how it is that the word search and the drawing and the writing of the haiku are all focused attention practices, or could be other variations of other practices. And in addition, we've got one more thing that we dropped in on in class at the end that you've read about in the chapter on movement and that you'll be doing this week. And this is a real wonderful opportunity to take a very important mindfulness practice and weave it into your week without having to do anything different than you normally would be doing, which is walking. So at the very least, when you're walking from your car or the metro or your bike to class or to work or home, it's an opportunity to practice mindful walking. If you're going from your office or where you're studying in the library to the bathroom or back, that's an opportunity to practice mindful walking. And so we, in class, talked about a variety of ways of doing it in terms of noting to ourselves left, right, as we're walking, or 1, 2, 1, 2 as our feet make contact with the ground, or the sensations of our feet as they make contact with the ground. In all cases, they're just slightly different objects of attention that are associated with walking. And then if you notice your mind wandering, to bring your attention back to the object of attention. And so hopefully we're beginning to see that while it's like, oh my goodness, I need to do this word search, and oh my goodness, I need to write this haiku, and oh my goodness, I need to draw this image, and oh my goodness, I need to walk in a special way. That really, these are all just focused attention, deliberate, intentional ways of doing these things. And we're often doing, mental games like word searches, and we're certainly walking, and we're often writing things. So this is a reminder that all of these things are actually part of what we'd be doing anyway, but we're adding that layer of intentionality and doing so as a practice. Ultimately, why do we do this? Well, because we're interested in developing things like a steadier attention and greater, more vivid, robust awareness. And the more we have those qualities, the more everything we do benefits, and we can practice in mindfulness in ways to develop that larger aspect of our mindful awareness that will then in turn benefit the various things we're doing. And here we're seeing how even the various things we're doing can be constructed as a mindfulness practice. As Amelia, when she talked about jogging and the app that was really guiding a mindful jogging practice, and she saw those pieces layered into it, and perhaps we all can talk next week when we do about how that in fact can be beneficial both for the period of jogging itself but also beyond. All right, let me just see if there's anything else. Yes, in your communications we talked about the 5 core concerns, and so the idea here is that while you're having conversations with other people, again, it's just something you're already doing, especially if you notice a little bit of a dip in mood, to check in and see if you can identify what core concerns might be in a deficit state. And that's the assignment, to have it where you are paying especially close attention in communication. In some ways we could say it's a D&I, so you're do not interrupt, but you can be even interrupting and still noticing this. But if you're not interrupting, you're probably more likely to notice this. And then just identify which of those 5 concerns, one or more of them, are, we could say, in a deficit state. And we can leave it at that. And if you're able to remember and write it down, that would be terrific. But you could also take it one step further. This is optional. Now that you realize there's this deficit state, or you intuit that there's one, what might you say or do to help bolster it? And we'll talk about that. But mainly, without having to change the nature of your communications with anybody, it's this inner Sherlock Holmes, we could say, of noticing and observing. In this case, tracking those 5 core concerns. All right, we have a writing assignment. Now, the writing assignment is really picking up on something we've talked about early in the semester and that we're zeroing in on now. It's relevant to your paper, but this is not pertinent directly to your paper, and that is previously you identified an area or areas where you wish that your intentions and your behavior, your conduct, your actions were more in alignment, that there was less of a gap between them. So the writing assignment, which is a 1 or 2 page writing assignment, is to identify an area where you have historically wished, so you've thought about this before, you've maybe written about this before, your intentions and your actions to come together, to be a little bit more closely aligned, or be fresh about it and just sort of think about what is it right now where you wish that there was greater alignment between those two, and then write how it is that the practice of mindfulness has already for you, or you see the opportunity, the promise for it to help bridge the gap between those two. So that's the assignment. And there's the reading that was handed out in class. And if you weren't in class, it's by my door. The reading on mindful looking. This is a wonderful chapter from this wonderful book on mindfulness and art. And so we will discuss in class, and please come to class prepared to speak to certain sections of it that resonated with you or that you found interesting, and you may find that you weave a little bit of that into this writing assignment if you choose. I think it's ripe for doing so, but that's up to you. But come to class prepared to discuss that chapter, and I think that you will find that that chapter brings together a lot of the things that we've been exploring. All right, I think that that's pretty much everything. I hope this is helpful. Let me know if you have any questions, and wishing you all the best.